Welcome to our presentation, Designing and Teaching a Literacies graduate course, Teaching Literacy as a Site for Shared Transformations. We are Professor Raúl Alberto Mora, who is a full professor at the Universidad Pontificia Bolivariana, and my name is Claudia Cañas, and I am an adjunct professor for the Faculty of Education at the same university, and also an English teacher at a private school in Medellin. So we are going to have 4 sections that are going to allow you to know a little bit more about our work that is very much focused on literacies as one field that is a little bit unknown in Colombia, but we would like to let you know that we had been opening some spaces where we talk about this topic, and we are eager that also people around our country know a little bit more about it. Now we are going to give you the context of this journey. It's about the context that we have been creating around this course that is in a graduate program in Medellin. For the past decades in Colombia, we have been worried about that part of how in-service teachers want to become better in their teaching practices, how they want to improve what they do in their classrooms. And the more traditional route that they have to follow are those workshops that some institutions have provided them in different spaces, not only in their institutions, but also in other places as seminars and congresses that are around, not only for in-service teachers, but that are open for pre-service teachers and researchers. Then this in-service teacher education has also worried later about that group of teachers that are serving in classrooms, not only in the schools, but also the universities, need to be more aware of what they are doing. And that's why we are having now more master's programs that are centered on second languages and also in the TESOL field. And now that we have that master's group of programs with more perspectives around helping the teachers, there are also a group of programs that are beyond that, that are the doctoral programs, where they are centering their studies in that section of researching some concepts that maybe are the one that the teachers want to discover around their classroom, or that they want also to have a solution based on the research that they conduct during their doctoral programs. It doesn't mean that during the master's, the students, in this case, the service teachers that are studying master's program don't find some solutions during their research, but in the doctoral program, they go beyond those broad concepts that maybe they want to develop. We have to center on what literacy is and how in our program we have also carried out some steps in order to help our students understand what literacy is and what literacy in second languages is. So if we go back to the first concept, that is the broader one, that is literacy, we based that definition that Freire and Macedo stated as reading the word and the word, and Street defined it as that part of a social practice, that it means that we are going beyond those reading and writing skills that are decoding or encoding words. More than that, we can read, we can write in different forms, not just the ones that we find in the traditional classrooms, where the reading and writing are skills that are valued just because they decode or encode words. But when the students present different forms of writing, as maybe drawings or memes or cartoons, they are not considered as writing. So that's why it's important to take into account these two definitions. And when we talk about literacy, it's a concept that has been like in our classrooms, has been present as a traditional functional skill concept, right? It's because we just found that in Colombia, we had been working on how to transform those concepts of functional traditional literacy into something that is broader. And is that why we now listen, or we can identify that our students communicate in different forms. And that's the way that we are seeing that literacy goes beyond the skills that we have been traditionally working with. We are also working on going to that path that literacies in second languages, as Mora and Cañas have been working during the course and through the research conducted in our group, LSLP, in the different studies that we had conducted. It means that literacy is everywhere. It's not just something dedicated to the schools, or it's not something that you can develop inside a classroom. That's the way when we say that we can intertwine those literacy practices that are in and outside of the schools, and that it's not only for a language itself, that is broader than that. That's why we call it in plural literacies, and also that is not just dedicated to one language. When we talk about specifically this seminar that we have at the university, we have 3 vantage points that we want to highlight. That in the first part, we have as instructors of the course a journey in the designing of this seminar. And when we talk about a journey, it's because it has been in a constant evolution. It's not a process that is just for one edition or for one version of the course, and is repeated one semester to another. It's that opportunity that we have as instructors to share what we find in every version of the course, that we can revise what is happening with the topics, that we can share also our reflections around those discussions that we had with our students during the different classes. And when we talk about those reflections is when we have identified that we can have this course in different programs, and that is not only a course that is close to the master in second languages here at our university. When we talk about the seminary in literacies in second languages, we have the purpose to transform what? Our teaching practices, and also those ones from our students. That's why we have that intention to focus not only in the learning, but also on our students' practices. And the very beginning of this part is to help our students to transform that concept that maybe we bring from our undergrad courses or from other readings or other approximations that we have for that part of literacy, that when we ask our students, immediately they associate that word literacy with reading and writing. That is the most common definition that our students bring to the first class that we have in the seminar. And we ask them, what do you know about literacy? And they immediately say, oh, reading and writing. So another said, literacy is something related to maybe reading, but they don't go to that extent view that we have about literacy as a social practice, and also about literacies in second languages that is more centered into our field. And in that part is where we invite our students to reflect around the concept.
All right, so let's talk a little bit now about the journey of putting the course together. So let's first give a little bit of context. The courses, we designed it. It was initially offered in the MA in Learning Teaching Processing Second Languages at Universidad Pontificia Bolivariana. That's the on-campus version. But later, Claudia created the virtual version that is offered in the Masters in Learning Teaching Processing Second Languages. The course in general, in both versions, it's a survey course where one look at the literacy theory in the past 50 years, where we zero in on critical literacy, literacy studies, multiliteracies, multimodality, digital literacies, engaging in reflexivity about how those theories are part of the curriculum. Or to go deeper, think about how we go beyond the traditional views, as Claudia was talking about in the introduction, that compartmentalize reading and writing as just decoding and encoding, and we go deeper than that, and we go further than that. But in the sense of look at the theory to transform your teaching. Look at the theory as something it can help you improve your teaching. In terms of the design, the experience began in 2013 when I designed the first version of the course and I started teaching. And interestingly enough, I think Claudia will mention that later in her in the presentation. Claudia was a student in the very first cohort that I offered. In 2015, when Claudia was working on her master's, she was we started talking more and more about literacy. And after she graduated, I invited her, and later I invited Monica and Gloria, and we bring those two names because they are also instructors of record of this course, to be my teaching assistants, so they could learn to teach the course. And later in 2018, because of some changes in the program, Claudia took over the course. She became the instructor of record for the on-campus version. And later she was the person in charge of designing the virtual version of the course. In 2021, Gloria and Monica, they are now also instructors of record for the course. So now the course has 3 instructors: Claudia Cañas, Monica Lopez Ladino, and Gloria Gutierrez Arizmendi. When I started the course, and I'm going back to the first phase, the course began as an extension, as a spin-off of my dissertation. So I used all the elements of the conceptual framework that I wrote in my dissertation. I just kind of transplanted them into that portion of the curriculum in the master's program, and I proposed the course on literacies in second languages, always from the notion that I wanted to focus on praxis, in the idea that I didn't want teachers to think that they had to completely change what they were doing, but more that they could build from what they were doing and adding little tweaks and gradual changes to their practice. One of the big mistakes of in-service education has been to force teachers to throw away everything they got and start something new. And I think that's a very counterproductive view of in-service teacher education. As I continued developing the course, I had the idea that I loved teaching the course and I loved teaching that course, but I didn't see myself teaching that course ad infinitum. I thought it's not healthy to have just one person teaching one course. I think that's detrimental to the growth of a graduate program, for example. So I started inviting my grad students. So first I had Claudia, then I had later Monica, then I had Gloria, and a couple of others who are not part of the team anymore to learn about the course, keeping this relationship in two moments. First observation, where I would just have Claudia and the others sit down, pay attention to the class, take notes. Incidentally, they always took more notes than the grad students did. And then the involvement, when it was gradual. So it was now get involved in the conversations, talk to the grad students, and eventually maybe teach a section or one class, or teach something that is related to your, or give a presentation that spins off your own research.
Okay, continue with those phases that Raúl was talking about. In 2018, I started as an instructor of the program. And at that time, I refined the syllabus based on my experience as a student, as a TA. As Raúl said, when we were observing his classes, we were talking a lot of notes, and those notes helped me to analyze how I dreamed my course and how I started designing. And when I had the final version of that first syllabus that I was designing for my course, based on my learnings from that part of being a student and also a TA, I presented to Raúl, and I also shared it with Gloria and Monica at that time. And I received some feedback from them. And with that feedback, I had a final version that was the one that I developed during the course at that time. But every year that I start planning the course, I revise the new literature that we can have. And also we had the same exercise, to share with the other professors that version and how, with our experiences, we can improve the version of the syllabus. Because as Raúl said, the main idea is that we don't stay the same course for a long time, that we can have cycles in order to refresh the course, and also a way to refresh our own knowledge. In 2020, I had the opportunity to design the syllabus for the virtual program, because at the beginning we have just the on-site program, that is the one that we had since 2013. Just this year, we started having the course in the virtual mode. And at this moment, we are in the second cohort, having the course with Monica. And when we have this opportunity to have both modalities, it's also an enriching experience, because when we have the on-site classes, we have some students who comes from other parts of the country, 2 or 3 per course. But now that we have the virtual modality, that opportunity to have students from abroad and also students that are in other places in the country enriches our program and also our course. During this last phase, I couldn't have the opportunity to teach the course. So Monica and Gloria were invited to have the course, Monica as professor in the virtual modality and Gloria in the on-site. And we had been in a constant communication. When we said constant communication, is that Raúl has some conversation with them. Also, we can have group meetings where we solve doubts, when we discuss on topics that we want to develop in the course, but they are autonomous to develop their own ideas. When we said that we share, it's in order to enrich our practices, but it's not mandatory to do what we are proposing or what we are presenting from the previous versions of the course. Raúl has been always there for us, yes, since we started in 2015 with this process. He has been always open to us in order to solve our doubts, to give us some advices with his experience in the field of literacies, and also as a mentor, because as you know, sometimes when we have that process, it's not just go and teach the class. We also need some advices in order to some readings that are special for certain topics. And when we write articles, we can have that experience also, how the process of mentorship is different when we are a student and when we are a teacher of that course that one day you receive as a student. So Raúl has been always there, giving us like the key ideas in order to help us improve in our process as teachers. Now, talking about teaching the seminar, that is part of that journey that we have lived through these years, we had to talk about those lessons that we have learned. As you had been like listening from the beginning, I started as a student of ML2 in 2013, and I took the seminar as part of the master's program because that was the first cohort. And at that time, I listened to Raúl in the course, and it was like that part of the course where you feel that you are finding finally that answer that you were looking for in a program, right? Because I have been listening about that concept or about that word better, because at that time I just knew one definition that was literacy was reading and writing. But when I started listening to Raúl's explanations, and when he gave us that kind of long list of references to read, I found that answer that called my attention, and also that was that motivation to conduct my research for the master programs in literacy, especially in early literacies, because at that time I was working with third graders and fifth graders. So I found that that was my topic for my research. And the first time that I met with Raúl, he said, no, you don't have any idea about this. You have to read more and more about it. And also it was enriching because Raúl knew some part of the story. That was that part of literacy, but also we were telling him another part that was that experience of working with children. And at that time was that conversation that helped us to continue in the path of working and enriching literacies in our program, because it was the first time that we were working with literacies in our university. In 2015, when I was finishing my master, Raúl invited me to be his teacher assistant, and it was a great opportunity to continue learning about this field that is amazing, because always you have something to learn, and also how you can evidence it in your own teaching practices, or as Raúl said, how you can bring those theories of literacy to your class, but without that need of changing what you regularly do, or without going against with those concepts that maybe your institution asks you to follow. So when Raúl invited me to be his teacher assistant, also he was so humble to share with me the version of that syllabus he was going to develop during the course. And together we had the opportunity to be in the courses, and he also received my feedback, right? Maybe I had the opportunity to read more about children's literacies, so I said, Raúl, I suggested this article, maybe I read about this, and together we have different versions of that syllabus. In 2018, as I said before, I became the instructor of the course, and I analyzed the previous syllabus. I took all the syllabus from 2013 until 2017, and I analyzed what were those readings that we had been like discussing with the students and how they have transformed the courses, and what are those new references that help us to improve our syllabus. And now in 2021, I became a femtor because Monica and Gloria are having that opportunity to be conducting or teaching the courses in the two modalities.
Well, in my case, when I studied literacy studies, I've been talking about a long time ago when I was a grad student myself. I also had the mentorship to help me get into the path of literacy. When I started teaching the course, it wasn't that difficult at the time because I had a vision for the course and I had all the literature at hand. But at the same time, I also had this feeling that at some point I really wanted to let go of the course. Again, I didn't really want to be the only person doing literacy research in my institution. I didn't want to be the only person teaching literacy in my institution. Fortunately for me, students answered the call. Students joined me in this particular work, and both doing the research and talking about it and teaching it at the graduate level. Things we have learned about this, that's important. As you teach and create a course, it's important to revisit and really embody the theory, not simply talk for talking, but really making it part of your practice and really thinking how that informs, in Claudia's, in my case, our work as teacher educators, but also going back, referring back to Claudia, how that informs her own school, her own teaching in her school, and how she can influence other teachers into thinking about literacy in her school. And very important as well, it's this idea of thinking of not simply talking about the theory, but really put it into practice, put it into life. How to really bring it to our personal literacy practices as we teach, as we mentor other students, as we help the next generations of teachers and scholars really get involved with the idea of literacy. I'm going to wrap it up with the discussion about the issue of continuity. And the initial question was, okay, what if I cannot teach the course? Or what's going to happen that day when I want to teach another thing, like I'm doing right now, that I'm teaching qualitative research? Does that signal the course? Do we keep a course just with the name, but we're not even talking about that anymore? How do we keep this tradition? I think it's important that we had created a tradition where we had students inquiring about literacy, and more students are becoming interested in doing this kind of research.
We had to talk about that sense of continuity, and in two segments, the teaching and the mentoring. When we talk about that continuity in teaching, we need structures to keep the course fresh, and it's what we are having at this moment. Raúl started, then he invited us to be his teacher assistant. I came to the play with my experience in 2018. Now, 2021, we have Gloria and Monica, and I think that we can have more other professors who are there in our program and all as students, but also in our group as researchers, yes? So that improves our program as that part that literacy is not going to be closed to a group, to a specific group of instructors, but it's going to be open to more instructors to come, to are going to be interested to continue working on literacies in our program and also in our city, in our institutions, and why not now with the virtual modality in the country. And that is also a way to avoid the potential burnout of having just one instructor every single cohort. When we talk about that part of mentoring, it's also an opportunity to keep growing because now we can have more professors directing thesis. Because at the beginning, we have just Raúl, who was the one who helped us in the first cohorts. Now that we have more alumni and researchers in the field, we had the opportunity to have a big group of mentors for those theses. And also it's an opportunity for the alumni to create more sense of belonging to the program and that opportunity to open spaces to talk about literacies. When we talk about this sustained relationship through the root, is because when Monica, Gloria, and I, we were working, we are not only Raúl's mentees, we are also researchers and co-researchers. We can also help us solving doubts, but also giving feedback through the different activities that we can have related to literacies. And when we talk about that part of feedback is with all the respect that we can have for each other. As maybe you think, oh my God, but you are working with Raúl, he's one of the scholars who are more recognized in the country and abroad, talking about literacies. Yes, but when he is with us, he is also our mentor. So he is sharing his knowledge and we can have like a conversation with another partner, with another researcher that is with more knowledge, but that is humble with that knowledge and can have a conversation with us. When we talk about that part of relationship, it's also because we can have a sense of collegiality and friendship. We go beyond that part of being just researchers or that part of being professors of a course. We can also have that sense of friendship because we are human beings. We need to have that relationship. And that's part of the success that maybe we can have in some of the activities or some of those challenges that we face through the planning of the course, and also in our group that maybe you have been observing that logo in the slides that we said LSLP, is because we have that friendship. That is the part that also join us, that help us to be together with this challenge. When we talk about the graduate level of instruction, the need for research support is because when we talk about research, and especially in literacies, we don't have a lot of resources, human resources, let's say that. In Colombia, we have been like just opening that space, and that's why we stay together and always eager to have more students that get interest into the field, and also help our undergrad students to get interested into this field and start nourishing the part of research, and also creating that culture of research. Because sometimes when we are talking with in-service teachers, they said, no, research is so difficult. Research is just for those who have master's programs or for those who are in doctoral programs. But when we start helping maybe those small communities in our institutions through our practice, we can also start opening other spaces, not only for literacies, but also for research that is like a kind of answer to some of our difficulties in the institutions. It's time to say thank you so much for being with us during this minutes, and it's an invitation to visit our website that you can have the information here in the slides. And if you want to share some ideas with Raúl or with me, feel free to contact us by the email or by Instagram, and also by the social media that we have for the ELSLP. Thank you so much for listening to us.